Hi, Helen. Thanks for being willing to join with me today to have a conversation with me. As at New Road, we approach the end of a discernment process regarding the registration of our church building for the solemnisation of same-sex marriage. So it's good to talk to you. As minister at St Columba's, United Reformed Church, whom we are associated with as part of the quartet of Oxford City Centre churches. And we talk to you as St Columba's has been registered for same-sex marriage for quite some time. And I also know that you will speak into this situation from a very personal experience of married life too. So first, just to begin, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and about life at St Columba's?
Certainly, thank you for giving me the opportunity to chat to you. I've been in Oxford now for just over 3.5 years, and I have two churches. So I have St Columba's in the city centre and Cumnor URC in Cumnor Village. And when I arrived, both churches were already calling themselves fully inclusive, and both of them had already registered for equal marriage. And now at St Columba's, you'll probably have heard that we've just appointed our new outreach worker for gender non-conforming and trans people. You'll notice if you walk down St Alfred Street on your way to St Columba's that we have a notice board which is soon to be replaced because we have a new strapline. But the existing strapline on the notice boards reads that we are praying to be an inclusive church, which reflects our honesty that this is what we aspire to being, but it's not something on our to-do list that we've ticked off, that we've achieved it. We actually have to live it and do so prayerfully. And all of that is within the wider context of the mission of our church, which is to celebrate God's love in worship that's within the Reformed tradition, in fellowship that is inclusive, supportive, challenging and affirming, and in service that extends the love we share within our own community to the wider community. And in all things, we hope through the help of the Holy Spirit to be true disciples of Christ. As for me, I guess what you want to know is that I'm married to my partner, Sally, and we've had a civil partnership in 2008. And a few years later, when we were able to, we had it, as I say, upgraded to a marriage. We went over and filled out a bit of paperwork at the local registry office. And so we're now officially married. And next year we celebrate our silver wedding anniversary, or our silver anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's good to hear about St Columba's and yourself, obviously. My next question is just how has being registered for same-sex marriage or equal marriage impacted upon the life of the church at St Columba's?
Well, I asked people at St Columba's what they thought, because when I arrived there, of course, they'd already gone through the process. And they said two things. One was that it had impacted them positively because they'd been able to celebrate with couples and welcome them into the life of the church. And at Cumnor Church, they would also echo that because they've actually now got 5 same-sex couples who attend the church regularly, but not frequently because they come at quite a distance, but they've had to seek out a church that's at a distance from them in order to get married. The other response was that actually it hasn't majorly impacted the life of the church because they were already seeking to be welcoming and inclusive. It's a case of something that's extraordinary in the moment actually becomes ordinary every day. Everybody accepts it. That's part of life at St Columba's. But one thing I did when I arrived at the church was to say, why did you come to this church? And it was really interesting that most of the people said they had sought out an inclusive church. And when you look at the people who were answering, actually, it was mostly heterosexual couples and families with young children. But I mean, as you travel down St Alfred Street, like many people, you may not even notice St Columba's because it's quite a sort of hidden church in the city. And actually, you do have to seek us out in order to attend. And yet we're still getting new people simply because they look for an inclusive church.
Okay. Thank you. Now, as we engage in these conversations around marriage and around same-sex marriage, some Christians find it difficult to consider marriage as being something different to how it's been practiced through the majority of their lifetimes, and perhaps historically too, reserved as it was for mixed-sex couples. And some also find the pace of change quite challenging. Some find it too quick, and of course others find it too slow. Did you ever expect that you might be able to get married yourself?
Gosh, well, the answer to that is no. For the majority of our lives, Sally and I thought that this would be a right that would be denied to us. And if you'd pushed us, we would have said, well, not until we'd retired. So actually, thank goodness we haven't had to wait that long. But you say that actually it changes marriage. I would question that. In what sense is marriage different? The only difference is that something that was once the exclusive right of opposite sex couples is, and also at the same time denied to same-sex couples, is now open to all. It actually doesn't change the nature of marriage. It doesn't change the nature of the wedding service. And as you said, you know, opposite sex marriage has been performed for hundreds and thousands of years. But for same-sex couples, it actually hasn't come soon enough. But we're now at that point where people can get married. And the emphasis has always been upon people who find it difficult, and we're waiting until they feel ready. But actually, it's time to think about the same-sex couples who want to be able to declare and celebrate their love publicly, to be faithful, and to make their promises before each other within the context of a congregation and before God. So I don't think it weakens marriage at all. And a lot of same-sex couples, you'll find marriage is incredibly important. I myself have a very high view of marriage and treasure it because we've had to fight so hard to achieve it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so just following on from that, why is marriage then significant to you, and what does it offer that civil partnerships do not?
Well, as I said, Sally and I had a civil partnership, and when it first came in, we thought, well, this is a bit of a fudge. This is not quite marriage. This is what the government was attempting to do at the time and bring in at least something, but we saw it very much as second best. And also at the time, it was denied to opposite sex couples. And when we decided to have a civil partnership, which wasn't straight away, we did so because we thought we would just have to wait too long for a marriage. And it was initially about getting legal rights in place. One of the things we'd had to do before there was anything available to us was write our wills and have a power of attorney. If, God forbid, one of us ended up on a life support machine, we would rather be the ones to be asked whether to turn it off or not, being quite brutal, than that going straight to family. So it's those sorts of considerations, quite painful considerations, were the reasons to have a civil partnership. But on the positive side, as we began to think about it and prepare for it and think about who we were inviting and what it meant to us and what we wanted in the ceremony, it actually took on a greater significance. And ironically, perhaps, there were lots of church leaders present. So we had the then General Secretary of the United Reformed Church. We had some Franciscan brothers. We had former president of the Methodist Conference. We had lots of ministers. The only difference was we couldn't do it in church. We couldn't make our promises overtly in the name of God. We couldn't mention God at all. And actually, for someone who gets invited to friends' weddings and yet cannot get married themselves, it's incredibly painful. And I can remember a moment where we went to a wonderful wedding for some dear friends of ours, and Sally just sobbed her heart out in the service because it was something we couldn't do. And that was heartbreaking for our friends as well.
Thank you for your openness in answering that question, and really bringing home the importance really in considering marriage to be equally open to all people. finally, I just wanted to ask a bit more widely around our approach to the rainbow community, the LGBTQ community, because whilst we consider marriage in particular at the moment, it's only a small part of our welcome to people from the rainbow community. And so I just wanted to ask you, apart from registering from same-sex marriage, what else would you encourage us to do as a church community in order to be a welcoming and safe place for LGBTQ people?
Mm-hmm. Well, a couple of things I want to say first before I answer your question. One is, I feel that you've all welcomed me enormously warmly, and Sally as well, into the life of your church. So I've conducted a service at your church, in fact, a couple of services. The same thing is that you've sent out a very clear signal to the LGBTQ community, because a few years ago, I shared in leading a service at New Road for Pride, which was really important. And we've got preparations now for working even more ecumenically within the city on the next Pride service. But simple things, really. Listen to your young people. I find at my grand old age of 54, they get it quicker than we do. They don't seem to have the problems that we have. They don't need to think it through as much as we've had to think it through. Listen to the stories of people who are different and are challenging, and hear what they're trying to tell you, as painful as that may be. Keep going on the path that you're going on. You are inclusive. This is just another step to becoming fully inclusive. Another thing would be that we, as I mentioned, we have a new outreach worker to trans and gender non-conforming people, who's based at St Columba's but is available to work with the churches. So please take advantage of that. I'm sure Chrissy would be very happy to come and help you or chat to you or answer any questions. And beyond the initial challenge to yourself, see Christ in people's differences. You can only gain from that. You'll gain insights, you'll gain theological understanding, you'll gain an understanding of yourself. We often think of these things as challenging and difficult, but actually they give so much more to us than we end up giving ourselves. And in the end, people are people. My personal wish is for people to come into church, to be accepted for who they are, and not to have to come in with labels or with flags, but then maybe I'm getting a bit old.
Thank you, Helen. Thanks so much for your words of encouragement, and also for these words of challenge too. And thank you for being willing to share with us a bit of your story, and also the story of St Columba's. And thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to chat, and I wish you well, and my prayers are with you.
Thanks. God bless.